What I would love to do, I would really love to hear from you something. And I don't care, I don't care what, my thoughts go in two different realms. One of them is if you have any questions, because we have this, you have this limited amount of time directly with me. There are plenty of ways you can catch me on Zoom, and Laura can guide you to those places. Periodically, I'm on pretty regularly, so you can catch me at other times and other places. But this may be the only time that's convenient for you, and you're all here. So if you have a question, you might put that forward. I know you're all XY. I know you're all fee only. XY is such an incredible organization. We feel really lucky to be partnering with them, really excited, basically. We share missions so well. But so if you've got questions, you might think about that. The other thing is that I'm sure you're eager to share with each other something about what's transpired since you left the 5-day. And the thing that would be most inspiring, I think, I mean, of course, any change in your life plan, how you've moved on it, but what would be even more inspiring and useful for all of us, particularly with me here, is if you've done any life planning between now and then, and how to go. And because that's a place the questions could come up as well. And I'd be happy to give you my thoughts, even though I know you much less. And here I might rely on Dan Boyce to correct me. He's the only one of the trainers so far that is on the call. So, but that's basically the frame. I'm going to be looking at, if it's just all of us, it might be 4 or 5 minutes. We're going to aim at 4 minutes for each of you. If we're coming toward the end and we realize we've got a time crunch, it might slip down to 3 minutes apiece. Because I'd like to take the last half hour and share with you some things that I know Louis wouldn't have shared as much, but where my passion and my heart is right now, both about the deep roots of life planning, which I think of as inner listening. And I know Louis did do a lot of that, but I'll give you a frame that you don't have from him. And then the secondary thing, I'm really eager for what we can do to civilization. And part of it's just life planning everybody you meet. I mean, that's a wonderful thing to do. But I'm also looking at how do you life plan groups? How do you work groups so that there's not this polarized feeling? In America, we have, you've probably seen the surveys, but not everybody has. We have the lowest mood in America since the Great Depression. I mean, it is that bad. It's much worse than the last survey, earliest survey on mood, which was in the early 70s, coming out of the, the tumult of civil rights, of Vietnam, of Watergate, of the culture clash, all of that. And we're considerably worse in our overall mood than we were then. So one of the things I see life planning is doing in terms of life planning with groups and life planning civilization is finding a way to, because we find a way to talk to whoever comes into our office. So I've designed a way of having us talk to each other, even if we're on different polarities, so to speak. And it's inspiring, as you might imagine, because life planning is inspiring. So I'm going to share at the very end what I'm doing there and give you opportunities to join with me on other occasions on both of those fronts. So we're going to give you the first hour or so, and I hope the rest of your participants come join us. But it's also wonderful to have a smaller group because you have more time. We have more time together. So with that said, Laura, is there anything I've missed in terms of just kind of the overall scope?
Just so you know, I did hit record on this meeting, and that's we're doing a private recording for Marcia and others that weren't able to make it today because they asked, and just letting you know that it's not going beyond that purpose.
Great, wonderful, thank you, Laura. And Dan, anything you feel that you ought to add to this scope and frame?
No, I think that's excellent, George. Thank you.
Great, wonderful, thank you. So, who would like to begin? Yes, please just dive in. Chip, you're off mute, so you go first, then we'll do Alan after you.
Awesome. So Alan and Chris and I are in the same study group, so they understand what I'm about to say. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. So,
Me too, man. Me too.
Awesome. And here's the reason why. I had been looking for something to do with financial planning. I always knew that there was something out there that was beyond what the CFP was teaching us.
Yeah.
And I just could never find it. And one day I knew exactly where I was driving, where I had the revelation, but I was listening to Michael Kitz's podcast, and you were the guest interviewee. And as you went through the whole process, the light bulb went off, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for."
Oh, Chip.
So the next day or two, I actually found a hard copy of your Light the Torch book. And read it, and I said, okay, that's great. I'm going to go ahead and start modeling financial planning practice around this. I lined up one or two folks to do a test subject with, because in your podcast I interpreted it as a little bit of a challenge to go out and try to do this and everything else. Like, hey, let's do it. I got the instruction manual. It didn't go quite as smooth as I wanted it to. And when I actually had the chance to take the EVOKE course with all these great, wonderful folks, I jumped at it. Alan kind of twisted my arm just a little bit. He didn't have to twist too much. So I took the course, and I was like, wow, there's the way I interpreted the book and the way that this is done, there was a big disparity or a big gap. And I'm glad I took the EVOKE course, because it made a lot of sense of some of the gaps that I was seeing in the way I did it prior. So it was awesome. I thank you so much. You've affected a lot of folks, not just as from a client standpoint, but from a planning standpoint, and us as business owners. So I want to say thank you and appreciate it.
Wow. Well, Chip, if I'm not blushing, if you can't see my blush, I'm feeling it in here, and
Awesome.
and I'm really touched by what you say, and I'm so glad we have this on record. No, the course is amazing, and in many ways, you guys are lucky to do it on Zoom, because there are so many ways in which Zoom makes it even sharper. Because you see each other, you can look in everybody's eyes, including the eyes of the trainer and the person who's going with them, the dyads. And you don't get that in person. But if you have a chance and you can afford it someday, I hope you all come back and do the in-person one too, because that's really touching as well. But the training on methodology will echo between the two. They'll be pretty exact. And right on the training that, and I say Louis and I, because Louis's done more trainings with me than any other trainer in the world, but the training that Louis and I have kind of put together is pretty impeccable in terms of how to do the life planning. So I'm so glad you got it, and thank you. Thank you for testimony.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Have we been, you and I have not met, have we?
No, we haven't met at all. This is my first opportunity to have any type of interaction with you. So that's why I said I'm like a kid in a candy store right now.
Well, it makes me think, Laura, that we should put Michael's interview with me again. Periodically we put it up to the front of our social media, and I think we should do it again. We had a great time together, he and I. Yeah, thank you, Chip. And let's see, was it Alan who was next? I'm trying to think who had their hand up. Or was it Cade? Alan. Yeah,
sure.
Good.
Hey, George, long time no see.
Yeah, hey, Alan. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Yeah, it was I compared almost for when I entered the industry. I felt like I knew nothing. And then I took my CFP years later, and then I came out and I went, well, what the heck was I doing before I had a CFP? Because I knew nothing. And now I'm at that point again where I go, well, what have I done for my clients compared to what I actually know now? And I feel like I've done nothing. So it's like I'm coming back into the industry and want to, I'm grateful that I'm relatively young in my 30s, that I can make this part of my practice going forward. So a couple things I wanted to touch on. I've done really just one exploration meeting since we've had the virtual EVOKE conference. And that went tremendously well. It was completely different. I've never honestly closed a client without giving them a little something. I would give them like a preliminary plan, but it was so refreshing. We just talked, or they just talked. I just listened. I didn't think it would last an hour and a half, and it certainly did. And it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Also on my life planning side, Kim, she was life planning me, who's here. And one of the things that I was supposed to do with my obstacles meeting was I really started to, I wanted to get a home, our first home, my wife and I. So we're out and looking now. We started looking last week with a realtor, and we got pre-approved for the mortgage. So
Cool.
yeah, we're full steam ahead.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Fabulous. Wow. And what great news, Alan, and wonderful to see you again. And I remember you well. And I love your description of the exploration meeting. I can't tell you how much, because it's actually my favorite meeting. And but everybody goes, oh, the vision meeting is so inspiring. Well, of course you did I don't know how you did it on Zoom, but usually in the beginning we kind of choose which is our favorite place, which is our most difficult place. I love the exploration meeting because you don't have to do anything.
It felt like I did a lot because I did nothing. So.
And it gives you this whole hour and a half or whatever it is to just practice being authentic without talking. And that's incredible. That's just, it's a wonderful practice. And you're really learning about yourself, and your client has this benefit of seeing you respond without saying anything to every time they feel emotional, every time they feel high, every time they feel excited, every time they're concerned. They get it. They really experience you. And so you feel the rewards of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the rewards for me were always a close, basically, without ever, presenting really. So very, very similar, very similar. Yeah. And usually they'd say, gosh, why didn't my broker ever do this? Or why didn't my old advisor ever do this? So beautiful, beautiful. You must have done a really good job, Alan.
Hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah, thank you. And congratulations on your life plan maturing.
Thank you.
It's great. Yeah.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, hey. So who's next? Who would like to go next? Yeah, whoever wants to just take, yeah, there you go, Jennifer. Is it Jennifer or Jen or Jenny? What?
All of those are fine. Okay. Jen or Jennifer is usually what most people call me.
Great.
Well, this was just a great opportunity. This was something that had been on my radar to do for a long time. And I think just as this year has unfolded, it became a good opportunity, a good time to do the class. And I feel like it really couldn't have happened at a better time.
Wow.
I had my largest opportunity since working on my own, for the last 5 years. And I was able to just approach it this way without telling them anything, just asking a lot of questions. And I was able to, get that business. So that was wonderful. It was the largest client I've gotten to date. And still there's a lot more work to do, but it was just a very different feel, even in the initial consultation, just not saying anything, just asking a lot of good questions, just being curious. And I also think, over the last year or so for my practice, I've been focusing more on business owners. And it's always been a hard thing for me to try to bridge the gap between the business side of planning and the personal side of planning. And this was just a very, very natural way to do it, where they're not two things. If, for a business owner, they're the same thing. And so I think it made that conversation a lot easier, where it's not trying to make a delineation where there's not one.
Great.
And, so that was, you know, that was kind of a revelation for me. And I mean, I can even say, like, over the weekend, just on a run, just the ideas in my mind that go through saying, you know, how do I change my messaging on my website? How do I make this clearer to someone that this is about them? It's not about me. It's not about my company. It's about their plan. It's about their life. It's about their business. So I've you know, it's just kind of started off a little avalanche of good things, I think, of just how to think about things a little bit differently. And it's been very good. And my husband and I, you know, probably had a lot more conversations over the last few weeks about, you know, what his job, you know, looks like. You know, we talked in our class about, you know, job transitions for him, and just being able to take more time, being able to spend more time together. And, you know, just at lunch today, we were sharing our calendar saying, here's some days where we can make this happen. And so, you know, I just feel like there's intention behind the process. And if you're intentional about it, then you work the plan and good things happen. So, yeah, I mean, I have no bad things to say. It's been a great experience, and it's led to a lot of good conversations and good thoughts about where things need to go from here.
Beautiful, beautiful, Jen. A couple of thoughts, and I know you'll get more from, you know, the great teaching staff on the mentorship, and also from our staff here at Kinder Institute. You know, there are a lot of good websites out there that people have designed as registered life planners. One of the things I know that I've loved on a few of them is the emphasis on listening. That just simply saying to a client who's looking, I'm going to listen, is stunning to the client, as opposed to, here's my portfolio construction, here's what we do over here, here's what we do over here. I'm prepared to listen. And that's really something. Not even I want to know about you, but just that act of listening. That's a relationship act. I want to know about you can be a little bit like you're judging them in some way, or you're objectifying them. But I want to listen. Wow, who wouldn't want to come and talk to you? So just that's a trick for everybody. You might look and see, how does it fit into how it is you want to present yourself. So that's one thing. And then one other thought I had, and I don't know if you were misspeaking or, but I know that Louis will be all over this in the mentorship and all of this. But when you talked about the initial meeting, by the way, congratulations on winning the big clients. And we've had people win just astronomically big clients the first few weeks afterwards. It's just stunned us to see that happen. But the exploration meeting is not about asking a lot of good questions. It's primarily asking one question, and then just following up with different ways of saying, why are you here? Right. And because the open-ended question, they will view as much more listening than if you pigeonhole them with particular questions. Then they feel like it's your agenda. So just a reminder on that. And I know it's hard for all of us to remember it. And sometimes we just frame it, differently when we're speaking about it. But just a reminder on exploration. Great to meet. We haven't met, have we?
We have not.
Great to meet you. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go next.
Okay, Ken.
If that's okay. I actually have to jump on another call in a few minutes, so I'm sad I'll have to leave, but hopefully I can come back. But yeah, I wanted to share that what I really enjoyed about the EVOKE course was just the experience, getting to experience what it's like to be in the other seat. So that was really powerful for me to learn about that. And I've had a couple opportunities to practice, which has been good. I'm looking forward to having it be a little smoother moving forward. I struggle to, like you're saying, not ask all these questions that I'm curious about and in the way that I would otherwise.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling to learn how to hold back in that initial conversation.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a new way of engaging with people that is different. So that's been my struggle, but I'm looking forward to getting better at that.
Well, wonderful, Kim, and great. It's incredible to be on the other side, isn't it? And have someone listen to you. And let's see, was it Alan who was your partner, or Chip?
Yep.
Alan.
Alan was great partner.
Yeah, well, I can already tell he's a great listener, so you probably got a lot out of that experience. The challenge of curiosity is a wonderful challenge, because we're very curious, and to learn to kind of hold that inside yourself. One of the ways I think of it when I do that is, if I hold it inside myself, I'm giving to my client this incredible gift of freedom, that they have the freedom to go wherever they want, rather than satisfy my curiosity, much as I would love to find out about each of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way that I do it. I just think, oh yeah. And then the second thing is that if you win them as a client, you've got a long engagement with them. So you've got your little notes. You can always come back, and probably the likelihood is they're going to tell you anyway. If you do keep quiet, they're going to fill in all those places that you were curious about, and with even more depth, because they trust you more. And so that's the thing. Are we a listener, or are we a questioner? And I think they're going to feel safer knowing that you're a really good listener. So that's the thing. And as I said, what I love about it now is that I'm able to feel like I'm giving myself a gift of kind of discovering my authenticity, rather than discovering little facts and stories, which are fun to have. I'm discovering, how can I be authentic in this experience, this intimate experience? And I continue to discover that every meeting I have. So those would be my reminders. And I think the only other thing is what I was saying to Jennifer earlier, and others of you, is that whenever we ask a direct question, we're pigeonholing,
Mm-hmm.
and we're taking over the meeting. And people don't like that as much. I don't know if anybody's had this experience doing this yet, but I used to have people say, that was the most wonderful conversation I think I've ever had, or one of the best conversations. People called it the conversation of a lifetime. And Kim, I always had a big smile on my face, because, when it happened, and inside me, because I was going, well, we didn't have a conversation at all. You did all the talking, but that's what people feel is the conversation of a lifetime, where they get to just unfold and unravel and go in whatever direction, however it's meant to be. The other thing I discovered was that they came up with things that they didn't dare share otherwise, because they got more and more trusting of who I was. And they would suddenly leap from something about their portfolio or about their 401k to how their father, they never had a great relationship with him. Comes out of nowhere. If I'd asked the question, they probably wouldn't have quite answered it with as much authenticity and truth. But given that I was a really good listener, they opened. So anyway, that's my pitch for it. Go get them.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And do come back if you can.
George, I had a question on that.
Kate, yes.
Yeah, I get the first meeting where it's 90% listening.
Yeah.
Is there a secret to getting the clients to lead the visioning meeting more? Because we start asking questions and we start going deeper, but Louis actually kind of told me that I was bringing too much of my own judgment and opinion into my questions.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how to like reframe it and get the client to lead that discussion more in the visioning meeting.
Great, great. So one of the things I rarely do is ask a question at all. So in the visioning meeting, you just came in the visioning meeting, you've brought your 3 questions, you've brought the Heart's Core grid, maybe you brought the ideals, you come into the meeting, and I'm, very excited. It's a wonderful meeting. It's going to be inspiring. I loved seeing what you wrote if I read it already. And if I didn't, I'm really eager to hear. And, if it's a couple, Cade, would it be all right if I started with you, or, who normally wouldn't go first and all that and all those things. And then I look and I go, would it be all right if I read with you the answers to your 3rd question? You go, yes. And then I just read. And I read, if you were concise, I'd read each individual answer. If you were long-winded, I might try to join several together so that I get themes. So I read, love my kid, just love my kid. So I just read that to you and I pause. Don't ask a question, I just pause. I might go, wow, probably would, wow. Or I might go, that's wonderful, that's so wonderful, pause. What are you going to do if you've already had that first meeting and you've got a really good relationship? You feel that trustworthiness of your advisor, and they read this thing that means a huge amount to you in a way that has a touch of appreciation, a warmth, and a pause. What are you going to do as a client? Yeah, you're going to fill it in, man. You're going right to it. You got someone you already know you love to talk to, so you're going right there. So I never ask a question. I basically read the answer with a positive gesture of a guttural, wow or something, and showing that I'm excited or I'm touched. Pause. No questions. If I ask a question, it's beginning to pigeonhole you. I'm giving you my interpretation of what you just said. And I want you to go down my alley. That's not intimate. That's all about me. So that's where I go with it. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Who would have thought the secret to listening was not asking questions?
Yeah. Beautifully said, Kate. Beautifully said. And I don't know, Laura's kind of vaguely keeping track of time, probably. I don't know if you've got another anything else you want to say with your time.
We just got a half hour left for comments and questions.
Okay. So we've got I got about half the people left. So, Kate, anything else, or shall I go on?
Oh, I guess I was just asking a question. My time would be, man, this really struck home. I started a few years ago meeting with an accountability buddy and trying to, build essentially better lives for ourselves. And like everybody else here, I guess, that was at EVOKE knows my daughter has cystic fibrosis, and trying to figure out how to help her maximize her time here on Earth, and like this EVOKE process has helped me kind of, really put it in perspective of how to do it ourselves. It's got me motivated. Like I'm actually so motivated and so jazzed up that I'm actually struggling to do any real work because I'm too busy thinking all these adventures that we're going to go on. Like I'm making lists of places to go hiking here within the next week or two, and I'm doing all these fun things that have nothing to do with work, and I really should be focused on work. We'll get back there as soon as some of the fun and emotions die off. Maybe we'll get back there, but it's really cool to experience it myself. Kim logged off. I actually asked Kim. They told us not to evoke our own spouses, so I knew my wife would enjoy Kim, so I asked her to essentially life plan my wife, and I think it went pretty well. I learned quite a few things about my wife that I had no idea.
Yeah.
So that was really good. So it's kind of cool that she knows what I'm doing now and why she had to sit and let me do this all week. But other than that, it's been going really great. I'm excited to be able to bring this to clients.
Fantastic. Wonderful, Cade. Thank you so much. The one thing I would add about spouses or partners, um, uh, the one thing I do with Kathy, and it's been fabulous, is we share third questions. We'd share the whole, periodically we'll share the whole vision meeting with each other in terms of the exercises. And but we also went to an outside person. Here I am, Mr. Life Planning, and you think that wasn't humbling and challenging for me, but it was wonderful, and it was because I knew that Kathy would grow from that, would feel more freedom to share and to be who she was by having that other person listen. But the truth is, ever since, she knows I'm so on target for her third question and whatever else is there. There's very little dispute about, you want to do this or whatever, that we share it at this point quite a bit with each other. And so I encourage you to share the inspirational pieces, but the places that actually need coaching, much safer to have someone else do that, because your partner wants to have closer to unconditional love around their aspirations than a push. Yeah. Wonderful, Kate. Thank you. Who's next? Who's next? Louise. Yes. You're on mute, Louise.
There we go.
Good. Great.
It's nice to see you, George.
Nice to see you.
It was a fabulous week with these guys. We had so much fun. And, there's so many things that I want to put in WhatsApp. I know I'd bury them if I kept asking all the questions that I have. It's like, I can't ask all of them. But I'm really excited because a friend of mine referred her daughter and son-in-law as of last October to me as a client. And I had met with them for my pre-EVOKE first meeting prior to it. And so now what I'm doing is with my existing clients, going back to them to ask them the 3 questions to make sure that I include all of that in the plan.
Great.
And the reason that they came to me was because he kind of just said, oh, by the way, my mom has reached a point where she needs to move out of the family home, and I want to support her starting next year. And she was like, we're just starting out, and I had other plans like for kids and education and did it. And so and she's so organized and she's really on her game.
Right.
But to be handed that, she was like, Lise, I don't know, So I'm so excited to ask these guys the 3 questions. Great. Because already what they're sharing and kind of, I think being aware of the financial numbers and, gee, what's that mortgage going to cost for your mom's house that you're thinking of, and those kinds of things is one thing.
Right.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm also honestly a little bit afraid sometimes to ask the 3 questions, just because you don't know what it's going to bring up, especially with COVID and what people have been through and those kinds of things. So, your statements on listening and that are really, really helpful.
Great.
Because you don't have to fix it.
No, you don't. And COVID, obviously it's close to the bone for most of us, if not all of us,
right,
in many ways. But it also has the virtue of having given us, many of us, more time.
So many silver linings.
Exactly. And more interactions with each other, with our significant others, which are always very important in a plan. So that there are many touchstones. It's brought us closer to the fear of death, and therefore it's brought us closer to question number 3. So there are a lot of ways in which I think COVID will aid the conversation, but what a rich opportunity you have here.
Right.
Because normally that kind of explosion of passion to deliver something for mom that wasn't in the budget, wasn't in the partner's mind at all, can cause enormous strife and obviously there's power struggle there immediately with the person just kind of announcing it. And what you've got is you've got the ability to listen, and who knows if that's really in their third question when you really go.
It'll be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to hearing the answers.
It'll be fascinating, and then you know the drill. I mean, you don't sacrifice a lot for things that are outside that third question,
right?
But you do make some amends to them. So I think that's going to be really a wonderful, wonderful case, and they're so lucky to have you.
Well, it's so exciting to have somebody in their 30s and early 40s, as opposed to, I'm 65 and I think I want to retire in a year. It's like, that's a little bit more compressed time frame here. So I'm psyched. I'm really psyched.
Yeah, they are. Just again, I know you wanted to toss that off, but they're very lucky to have you. Yeah. Because you have, they already are there with a lot, and you're a listener.
Yeah.
You're a listener. So beautiful, Louise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What an incredible story. Great. Thank you.
I'll jump in next.
Yeah, great, Chris. Yeah.
So George, I'll echo kind of what Alan said to a degree about finding things along the career path that kind of make the light bulb go off and go, how did I ever do anything different than this? So in my journey, I think the first step for me was finding like the dimensional funds philosophy in terms of portfolio management, and also like fee-only RIAs. So, and the CFP program. So I found all that sort of in maybe a 6-month window and went, okay, there's the path. Like, let's get that done. Let's go. So having done all that and seeing what I felt like is kind of the right way to run a practice, et cetera, similar light bulb moment, of course, once being introduced to life planning and to EVOKE. It's like, wow, this is revolutionary. Certainly something that I want to see become more of a baseline standard, of the industry in the future, and love to help move that movement forward. But I think, my journey to that moment has some interesting background to it, and some standpoints of there's such an emotional aspect of this process, and I've certainly met times in my life where I've been both accused by significant others of not having feelings, of seeing people get emotional in front of me and leaving the room because I wanted nothing to do with it. And so I think what there was a point in my career where a firm that I was working for brought in a guy named Charlie Green, who wrote a book called The Trusted Advisor.
Yeah, I know Charlie.
Charlie.
I know Charlie. He's a very good friend. I know Charlie.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't know him personally, but so that's where my journey starts basically. So Charlie, kind of comes and talks to our team at that point about how to build trust, and how to be trustworthy.
His partner at that time was going through became an RLP. Dan might have been in one of her classes. I'm not sure. I'm forgetting her name. And Charlie also worked with my wife, and he partnered many years ago on a series of workshops. But I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem. I figured you would know the name, at least. So basically, Charlie and his conversation, and it's something I already kind of believe, that basically sales tactics are all hullabaloo, right? Get that out of the way. Just genuinely care about the outcome of the person sitting across the table from you more than you care about your own personal outcome. And so that resonated with me really deeply. I remember at the end of the conversation, there was a Q&A, and he had kind of led us down the path of like, well, who's the most trustworthy? Generally, it's older women in like a nursing profession, and financial advisors are way down the bottom of that list, right? So I'm like, Charlie, here we go. I'm a younger male financial advisor. How do I do this, right? And he goes, just be yourself. He's like, just genuinely care about the other person more than you care about yourself. Be with them, fix their problem, find their solution, right? Even if it's not your own, just find a way to produce the result that they need for them, or no matter what the outcome, no matter what the case for yourself. So, okay, great. So, I started going down some of that path, and getting into some other things like Stoic philosophy and whatnot. It's sort of understanding that empathy becomes really, as I call it, the superpower, like the human superpower, essentially. If you have empathy, you can really generate strong relationships with with just about anyone. And so I started coming up in my own business with ideas like, money without meaning is just paper, and we should align values and vision with finances and whatnot. And that was all really good philosophically, but I didn't have a system or a process in which to deliver that. And I resonate, George, with your sort of answer of like, what does success mean to you? Going back to the Kids' podcast, it's moments of freedom. That to me in my life is everything, and trying to deliver clients those moments of freedom. So what EVOKE did for me was giving me that system, that process to actually deliver the philosophy in a way that is repeatable, successful, scientific to a certain degree, et cetera. So, yeah, and so I'm so excited to implement in the practice. I haven't had an opportunity to do it with a prospect yet. I have recruited a few former clients and friends to let me kind of take them through the process, which I'm very excited about. But at the end of the day, like I said, I hope this becomes the baseline. My goal is to build a practice that I can kind of fill up as a lifestyle practice. I've listened to Scott Frank's podcast, I don't know, probably 10 times now with Kitsis, and he talks about there's only so much room on the bus, and once the bus is full, move on. So for me, once the bus is full, I vision myself as sort of and forgive me for using these names, but like the Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey of life planning, to get it out there and get it as much awareness and visibility to it as humanly possible. And have some pretty ambitious goals to get there. And I'll say, going back real quick, just to wrap it up, Louise was my life planning partner, did a tremendous job with me. And one of the things that came out of that process was I've been doing some consulting with a few clients, not financial planning related, in some other industries, on just business consulting, business development, et cetera. And was really holding me back from what the true passion was, which is helping people in this meaningful way, create their most meaningful lives, their most fulfilled lives, et cetera. And so, turning off those consulting projects, which were paying the bills, was item number one, and that's done now. So glad to say that, and certainly leads me very excited to spend all of my time doing just this. And there's no better way I'd rather have it. So
beautiful. Well, I certainly look forward to hearing, as your future unfolds, all these inspiring things that you're thinking of doing, and just seeing what you deliver, because that you have put together. I mean, those four things were also four things for me. Rex Sinkfeld walked into my office in Cambridge in 1986, and DFA became our model. It really helped a lot. The fee-only movement, I was one of the first 50 advisors in that movement back in 82, 83, 84 in NAPFA, and of course the CFP was holding all of that. But to me, the real essence of it all is life planning, because it's the one that is human, really human-faced. In terms of fiduciary, I've always said that you can't be a fiduciary without being a life planner. But all those other things have fiduciary elements that are incredibly valuable. But the press is missing it. Many of our academic-oriented, perspectives are missing it. It's life planning that delivers fiduciary, because how else do we know what the client, who the client is? And we're supposed to put the client first. How do we know who they are? So beautifully expressed. Keep us posted.
Will do. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Yeah, great. And you're near Scott Frank, aren't you? You live near?
I am. I'm in San Diego. That's right.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So
Great.
I hope to get together with him soon. There's also a gentleman, Danny Michael, who just got done with the mentorship program with Satori Wealth. He and I worked together at a former firm here in San Diego. So we've connected on LinkedIn a couple times. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other soon. So
great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah,
all right. Very good. So we have 2 or 3 of you left, I think. Who hasn't shared? Yeah, Stana.
Everybody, good to see your smiling faces again. I missed it. I cannot echo what everybody has said already 1,000 times. I think the amount of emotion that went through, I think as we all went through the whole EVOKE process and through the whole training, was life-changing, especially in the eyes of a classically trained financial planner. Having gone through the CFP, having gone through sales trainings through multiple firms previously, you kind of get the idea of what the industry is pushing and the fact that life planning is a whole different world.
Totally.
And just how much greater of a capacity that the clients actually ultimately get from an advisor relationship going through this process is tenfold what they would get from any product-based salesperson. And that being said, I first kind of dipped my foot into the pool back at XY last year, going through the pre-con. It was fantastic. And once I knew that there was a training in Hawaii, I was already mentally on board. But then, of course, this came up, and it works just fine. But eventually, I would love to get out to Hawaii to do another EVOKE.
We'd love to have you there. Love to have you.
But I have had the opportunity to take it to do a few perspective calls going through the initial process and the discovery, and it's been way different of a feel, way less pressure that I can feel coming from the client, kind of where you feel almost like you always have to build the trust, and they're always so clenched and unwilling to give any information out because they've been sold so many times before that this just felt way more natural. It just allowed for them to open up even that much more. So I am more than excited to begin this next step in the process. So appreciate every second of it. And thanks to my partner, Gretchen, as well.
Wow. Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think she's up next, but just for a moment, I want to reflect on what you said. And I love it, Dana. Thank you. It was wonderful meeting you last in the fall in person. And the the difference between sales and this and building trust, and how you learn to build trust from a sales perspective as opposed to this. That's day and night. And I loved hearing your description, because when you're doing a sale, you're trying to build trust. And in this, there's no trying. I mean, you're just relaxing and being with the person in an authentic way. And that's the beauty of it. You get to, it's almost like a meditation, that first meeting, in just being yourself and just being here. And so it's just really beautiful way of doing it. And then when you add what you guys bring from XY, the incredible intelligence, the resources that Michael and the folks have put together for you, really pretty incredible. So thank you. Thanks for sharing. Good.
All right, I'm gonna go next.
Woohoo!
So I have had, I guess, 3 exploration meetings. One of them was like not totally, because they were really a client who'd already said yes, but then it got put on hold for COVID, but then we kind of started over again.
Yeah.
So definitely 2 full exploration meetings, which I just, like Louis said, just do it. Are you a life planner or not? You don't have to explain it, just do it. So that's what I did. The one was a similar experience to what Jennifer said, and some others, that it was just, she just said yes. And, we didn't really even, I didn't have to say a lot. I didn't have to present a sample plan or, really much about that. And then the second one was on Friday, so I'm hoping to hear from her today. So but I have a couple of questions for you, because in both of these meetings, there was a moment where I'm really trying to not ask any other question other than like you said, what brings you here, anything else. But there was a couple of times where it really felt like it stopped down, where they said something to me like, well, I'm really looking for you to tell me what else I need to be asking. Or in the second one, there was something like she quickly jumped to, well, tell me how you charge. And I felt like I wanted I would like some guidance of like, is there a way to kind of shift them back to, no, I want you to keep sharing.
Yeah,
so
great.
that's one question. And then I think my second question is, if they say toward the end, like, I really want some time to think about this, do you still introduce the 3 questions? Or how do you kind of wrap up that? Is this okay for me to be asking like these detailed?
Oh, this is great. And I bet everybody here is just soaking it up. Because these are classic questions that might very well arise for any of us in those meetings. And if I were still doing them, which I rarely do, I could still be facing those things. So great, Gretchen, great to bring up. And so I don't know how to answer that final bit in terms of, do you still hand them the 3 questions? I probably would. I probably say, well, this is where we'd go next. And assuming you're coming in, here's where we, here's what I'd like you to do as homework for coming in. Or you might say, would you like me to give you some homework, assuming you are going to come in? If you are, just ask them. And that will give you a clearer sense of whether they're going to come back or not right away, practically. But let's go to the 2 things about how to charge and looking for your guidance, what I might say. So if they tossed in both, and your instinct is absolutely right. Your instinct was, how do I get them back to them talking about themselves? Beautiful. So ride with that instinct. With that instinct, you're going to find, and this is something for all of you, you really all know, having gone through the EVOKE process, you really all know by instinct what it is you want to be doing. So keep coming back at the end of a meeting, look, what went really well and what didn't. And I'd be surprised if everything went really well the first 5 or 10 meetings. I'd be surprised if everything went well in your 50th meeting. I mean, there's always something there that you go, gosh, what is there some way I could have done that? Or am I misinterpreting it? And it's worth looking at because you're professionals. And this is how you become more professional, is by looking at those things and evaluating. And sometimes you're just totally wrong. That happened to me many times more often than not, I'm wrong. And the client goes away and it's one of those, well, I don't know whether I'm coming back or not kind of thing. And they go away and they call you up. They don't call you up for 3 years. They call you up 3 years later and they go, you totally changed our life. I want to thank you. We never did, but I really want to thank you. You totally changed our life. And I never got any feedback from them. So I had no idea, and I thought probably it was a failure. They didn't come back. I was totally wrong. I remember I wrote about it in one of the books, when I'm flying over Nebraska or someplace on my way from Hawaii back to Massachusetts or the other way, and the person finally said something to me who was sitting right next to me. He just turned to me and said, you changed my life. I thought, oh my God, what kind of weirdo have I sat next to on this plane? And it turns out they'd done the 3 questions years ago through something, whether it was my book or through a little workshop that I gave. And we changed their life. So stick with what you know works and evaluate and go through it. And you're bound to feel some doubt, some moments of fear, occasional paranoia, certainly anxiety around frustration, around, gosh, I just didn't get the cues back from them. But it could be that's just them and not you at all. It has nothing to do with how you delivered. So, so trust the process, as Louis would say over and over again, trust the process. And the 2 things, so how to charge. So they interrupt you and they go, well, how do you charge? Okay, well, you can give them that in 2 minutes or less probably, or just say, well, I charge by the hour and this is it, or I charge on a retainer basis and this is it, or I've got a 3-tiered system and this is it. But I've got something I'll give you at the end of the meeting that'll go through it in detail for you. And I'm happy to talk about this at the end of our meeting together as well, further if you'd like. So you give them it in 10 seconds to 2 minutes, and the shorter the better. But you want to satisfy them enough that they feel like you heard that this is important. So this is like often in the Letting the Torch book, we don't always teach this, but often we teach that there's 2 questions at the beginning. Is there anything urgent? And why are you here? And that might be an urgent question for them. How do you charge? And many urgent questions I'll put off to the end of the meeting. Like, you know, should I sell the capital gain stuff that I just inherited, or that I just, you know, got gifted, or whatever, that's all in this one stock and all that kind of thing. I'll say that's really important, but we can't answer that in one meeting. So but I will address it in a substantive way at the end of the meeting with you. But let's gather some of the information that'll make it more easy for both of us to make that decision together in an appropriate way. So the charging, I don't think you want to put it off. I think it's something because you can get it over with in 30 seconds and just say that this is roughly how. I'll give you a whole sheet on it at the end, and I'll be glad to go over it with you again at the end of the meeting, so you really get it. You know, we think it's fair or wonderful because of this, that, or the other. But that said, I'm really here in this initial meeting. I really want to. I'm really here to listen, and I'm really here to find out what you would like to get out of our time together. And then I might go, assuming that we have an engagement that goes on for a number of meetings or for many years, what would really make it for you? What would really make a difference for you? So it's just reframing why are you here into a slightly friendlier language for them is what it is. And there are a number of different ways you can do it. It's like elevator pitches. You can practice different ones. But I don't like doing that because it is narrowing it a bit, but it's still pretty wide open. It's all about them. It's whatever they want, basically. And it's not about the money, just what would you like, you know, to get out of this? And then you go back to the whole frame again. They give you a paragraph or two and you ask them, is anything else? They say no. And you go, you pause and you go, are you sure? And they say no, and you pause again. And then they start to talk. Or they say not really, which usually immediately they start to talk about why all the things that are there. So that's just basically it. Your instinct's absolutely right. How do I get them back? But you want to honor them. You don't want to disrespect them by saying, well, I'll tell you about that later. Their urgent questions report. So the second one was, I'm looking for your guidance. So that's lovely that they say that. And you might just celebrate that. Oh, that's so wonderful. Wow. Oh, well, thank you for that. You know, and I'm really looking forward to that opportunity to really share with you. Pause. See, I'm pausing in each of these places because any place I pause, they can pop in. And when you share it with affect, you know, with the warmth of feeling, they're much more likely to pop in because they're touched by your warmth. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's, you know, and then your wraparound after you've paused and seen is, you know, obviously you're here for my specialty. I'm a financial planner and, you know, I'm all these different things. And you've seen that from the website or from the person who referred you, and I'm happy to talk about more of that. And particularly maybe at the end of the meeting, we'll chat about all that kind of stuff if you like. But I'm going to be able to give you much better guidance if I really know about you and who you are, what you want mostly, and who you want to be, and you know, if it's a couple, you know, how what you both think of this, what you both want. Pause, you know. So how's that, Gretchen?
That is fantastic. Like, really helpful. I think I am a person who can get caught up a little too much in the black and white rules. So you're giving me a little wiggle room. But so those are some really good ideas. And I love what you said about this is like about the fees. This may be one of their urgent issues. So don't just dismiss it, but make sure that, so treat it like that.
Right.
Handle
Yeah.
it.
In that kind of question, they might hold on to that fee question for the whole hour and a half that they're trying to share other things, and therefore they're not able to actually hold you in a trustworthy way and share what's deep inside of them. So you have to get it out of the way. Same thing, 401k. But with a 401k, I'll say, look, you know, this is one of my specialties. I'm so glad you came here with that question. But the thing is that I'm going to be able to answer it much better. I can answer that anytime, and I'm going to be able to answer it much better after I really know more about you and who you are. Believe it or not, because money should be really fulfill who you want to be. So why don't we make sure we touch on that? I've noted it here. Make sure we touch on that at the end of the meeting. I'll make sure I've left enough time, and I'll give you something that you'll be able to run with at the end of the meeting. That'll be really positive, and we'll be moving forward. But in the meantime, you know, tell me, why are you here?
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Great.
That helped me a
Great.
lot.
Yeah, good. So the urgent things that are quick, go ahead, give them a quick hit. The urgent things that you know they can relax with, give them a relaxing frame for the last half hour of the meeting. And that's where I do all my kind of financial stuff and all that. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Gretchen. How are we doing on time? We've got, oh my, we're already at the time I wanted to start, but Bill, we haven't, is it William or Bill? None. Are you the last one? Anybody else?
I think, is anybody else yet to go?
Let's see what we can do. Anybody else? No, I think we've done it. Okay. Is it William or Bill?
Will, actually, but I've been called a lot worse, so don't worry about it. By a few people present here today. Won't name names, though.
I love Will. Will has so many resonances in so many different ways. We're not going to go there. We don't have time. What would you like to share or ask?
Well, now you have my curiosity, George, on how my reputation precedes me, but maybe that's something we talk about one-on-one. And one thing I would like to ask, I'd like to dive into Gretchen's concern a little bit deeper, because I'm going to be frank. I've had, 3 or so exploration meetings with prospects, and only one of them went really well. Where, the people were open and talkative, and I just think that's the kind of people they were to begin with. Like, that's just the kind of how they are as people in life. So I get stuck in a similar position where I actually had a prospect say, look, we came to you to ask you questions and get advice from you. So we're here to get this answer, and this answer. And I've really struggled with politely saying, hey, I know that's important. We're going to get to that. We're going to put it in your plan. I'm going to make sure it gets addressed. Why else are you here? And the prospect will go, that is why we're here. That is precisely why we are here.
Great.
And they either don't realize that there's something deeper, or they are just so concentrated on that urgent claim that they can't bring themselves to go deeper without getting that answered first. How would you respond to that if you were in my seat?
Yeah, great. So there's a couple of things, and then I'm going to go to my part of this frame. But that's a really good question, because we do get clients that are anxious, and sometimes we might think that they're arrogant. Sometimes we might think that they're frustrated or angry, but they're bringing a lot of affect right at us in terms of what they want. And those are legitimate questions. So the question, so one way that I have freed up space inside myself for being able to answer that question, those questions, is knowing that not every client is right for me. And this might be one of them. So I just have that in my hip pocket. Now, it's very, very rare. Maybe there was one client that I recall in my 30 years of practice that I said, you know, I don't think you're the right, 2 clients that I said it to. One of them left, and the other one, I said, you know, I don't think you're the right client for me. And he said, yes, I am. And he came right at me and insisted that he was the right client. And I said, well, this is how I work. And on we went. So it's useful to have that in your hip pocket. I rarely had to use it. But just knowing that you don't want to work with people who are going to push you around. If this is going to be the tenor of every meeting, you don't want to live a life like that. So that's helpful. It was harder for me to do when I was hungry, right? When I couldn't pay my mortgage. I couldn't get who was it that got the pre-accepted mortgage? I couldn't get it. It was harder for me to have that knowledge. And I made some mistakes as a consequence, just so you know. As human as anybody else. But here's what I would do, William. First of all, I'd be aware that if I respond in a reactive way, it ain't going to work. It ain't going to be helpful. So I'd see, is there any way that I can empathize with where they're coming from, that I can be kind and generous and gracious in my response, in how I would respond, that I can be warm in the connection somehow, while also acknowledging that each of those areas are really important to me. I've been professionally trained in each of those things. Those are specialties for me. I can't wait till we get to them. I'm excited that you're eager to address those questions. And I look forward to doing it with you. Pause. Let that sink in. So you're not being reactive, and your affect is more empathic, warm, generous in spirit, present, and engaged, still engaged with them. You're not shutting off yet. You've got it in your hip pocket, but it ain't there. Okay? You're there. And then you say, but just to tell you truthfully, the way I work, what I've learned from all my years of practice, from all my years of study, is that a transactional kind of relationship where a client comes in and they just want to answer the question, they want an answer to this question and one answer to that question, that the right person for them is a salesperson. And my belief is that a salesperson is probably wrong for almost everybody, but that's the best person you're going to get, who's going to answer you directly around those things, because they don't care about you. All they care about is the answers to those questions. And you can find those people. They can be in the financial planning world. You can find them. They don't necessarily have to sell product. They can still be fee only. They can still be CFPs, but they're going to be more transactional and understanding that they're selling you that information. That's not what I do. And what I do is I put you first. And all of my responses, all of the work I do is dedicated. All the financial work that I do is dedicated to delivering you into the life you really want to live. And the way that I understand that I won't make mistakes, because I don't want to make mistakes, is that the only way I can do that is knowing something more qualitative about you. And so the first set of meetings, that's what the first meeting in particular, that I'm here mostly just to listen to you, to hear where you want to go. So there's another reframe. Who was it? Gretchen asked me for reframes. How do you reframe this, the first session? So that would be the reframe I would do there.
So basically the answer is give them a non-answer, correct?
Given them what?
Give them a non-answer.
Yeah, I don't answer the three questions about the financial questions. I let them know that I will answer them. We may address them in the last half hour of this meeting, if there's urgency to some, and if they require more gathering of information, then we'll go at the procedure for gathering all that information to put it all together. So I'll let them know that there'll be a procedure for getting to those questions and addressing them in a way that's professional. And that for you, you don't think it's professional to just answer those questions without knowing who the client is and where they want to go, who they want to be. And then if they say, well, we don't want to do that, you go, well, I guess I'm not the right person for you. You can find, there's a list of other people in XY or other people in NAPFA or other people in, there's other people in the world out there, other CFPs. The community I'm in works like this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It was quite a challenge for me to get around that, especially it being my first prospect phone call after the EVOKE training. So, of course, going from a mindset of, this is great, it really works, this is a strong process, and then to, in a way, get hit by a Mack truck.
Yeah.
When you're trying to get out and do it for the first time yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's part of the reason why I signed up for the mentorship. I really feel like, everybody in the EVOKE community, everybody who went through the EVOKE class, in a way, after 4 days of being open and vulnerable and talking to each other, you're predisposed to, I won't say it's a tainted sample, but it kind of is. But you're predisposed to talking and, being open about who you truly are. And that's not how everybody in the real world is.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things that brought me back towards the mentorship is, I want to know more about how to deal with these roadblocks properly, because obviously there are tons of improper ways, but what are the proper ways?
Great. I hope we've helped. Will, I've got to move on. I'm now 15 minutes late and I'm trying to figure out what I should do. Laura, do you have any suggestions? Let me just ask, if I run over, is that okay? Is anybody absolutely not okay with my running over a bit? Everybody's okay with it? Yep. Okay, good. Good. And Dan, I didn't give you a chance to say anything. Is there anything in 30 seconds you'd like to add?
Very quickly, the first thing I would say is you are the future of financial planning, because much of what is done in financial planning is going to be automated, and what you're doing cannot be automated. Number two, it is not just clients that will benefit from the training that you've had. Every interaction you have with your friends, your family, the tool bag that you've learned, you carry with you wherever. And then three things that I don't know if you're going to touch on, George, in your remarks. One, everybody might be semi-aware of it. The RLP, how to become a registered life planner. Number two is someone might at some point want to become a trainer, and what comes next, I guess, is that. And the third that I'm curious about, because I've not been connected for a long time, is whether Nasruddin is still going, and some people might benefit from connecting with Nasruddin.
Yeah, sure. Great. Well, Dan, we may put those in an email from Laura at the end, because they're not where I'm headed. But thank you for that. It was wonderful to hear. And I'm hoping that you're all game. You're going forward for the RLP, because that's really just fantastic. And thanks for the pitch for that, Dan. Yeah. Chip, you had a quick question?
Yeah, it was more of actually a comment. I don't know if you know gentleman Harv Ames from New Hampshire.
Who?
Harv Ames.
Oh, sure, I know Harvey.
Okay. I've had interaction with him. I've been to his house before, and he gave me a quick introduction to what Nasrudin was about. So, you know, I'm sure I'm speaking for him, but I'm sure he would send his best on.
Yeah. Great. Well, we'll send something out about it for contacts with NAS. NAS was a think tank that I started many years ago, and I haven't gone in years, which is why it's not a major theme at this point in the RLP. But it has many overlapping elements. What happened when Kinder Institute formed, I brought really all of my attention to the Kinder Institute part of the life planning movement. But we'd be happy to supply more information. Harv is one of the leaders. So what I'd love to do is share with all of you two themes that one of them is going deep and one of them is going out into community, into civilization. The theme that is going deep has to do with inner listening, which I know Louis tapped upon. I'm just wanting to see if I've got the copy of the book that I wrote on this. Do any of you have this book? How many of you have this book?
Can you hold it up? Transforming. Okay. No.
Just a couple of you. This, if you've read the 7 Stages book, this book takes the understanding segment, how you work with innocence and pain through understanding, and expands it dramatically in 80 exercises. I've now put it all on video, or the first half of the book is on video and audio and YouTube. But it is it's really a practice. The subtitle is Mindfulness and the Art of Inner Listening. And so it's and I've taught mindfulness. You may know this, you may not, for longer than I've taught life planning. Actually, I've taught mindfulness for over 30, 35 years. And been a practitioner for 50 years. One of the things that I argue is that, and I think Dan would agree with this for all his years of practice, that, and you know this really from now what you've done, is that the best financial planners really out there are not the ones with all the skills, they're the best listeners, right? And the best listeners among all the financial planners tend to be life planners, even registered life planners. Does that make sense to you? Because you're trained in that. And among the life planners, the best life planners will tend to be those that have an inner listening kind of practice, because they've learned how to listen to themselves. And that's what gives us that ease. I love that you all were talking about that first meeting. But that's what gives us that ease and that ability not to follow our curious questions, just to be here. It's tough to do. It's tough to do. So it's that inner listening ability to watch what's going on in here, and where our anxiety is coming up, where our frustration might be emerging, where our annoyance might come up, all of those things, and knowing that we can be at peace with them. It's emotional intelligence, but we learn it tremendously from inner listening, from meditation, from mindfulness, from a mindfulness practice. So I want to say that, and I want to introduce you to a couple of frames that come out of my new book. Have any of you read this book? How many of you have got or read? Dan, of course, has, yes. Dan wrote a wonderful comment for us on it. So that's it. So it's called A Golden Civilization and the Map of Mindfulness. So I'm going to introduce you to a couple of frames here. But the large frame that you should know is what the book is about life planning civilization. was that I came to a place where I realized, look at all this energy, this extraordinary entrepreneurial energy that we give to each of our clients. And look at how they dive into what their authentic life is. And look at how they solve their family problems, their business problems, their relationship with their kids, all because of life planning. And then look at this. We had this banking crisis 10, 12 years ago, worst recession we'd had since the Great Depression. Now we've got a worse, even worse recession that may be a depression, and we've had all this political turmoil. What's going on? You know, I mean, we can do this if we can, with life planning, deliver people into this quality of authenticity and putting their life together. Why don't we use the same skills to deliver civilization onto a healthy trajectory of listening to each other? We all know that that's the main solution for the polarization that's out there, listening to each other. And my intuition was that if we crafted a vision of a golden civilization, if we got groups of people together, and I've now done this all over the world. I've done it in Hong Kong, I've done it in Mumbai, I've done it in all over England, in the north of England, which is Brexit country, and in London, all over England and the Netherlands. We've had conversations in Africa and Australia and really all over the world. People want the same thing. My intuition was correct. So if they do, why don't we just use EVOKE to deliver it? Okay, so I'm going to show you how we do that, but I'm going to start with inner listening. So these are large questions. You're used to that from me. I mean, 7 stages I wrote over 20 years ago, was thinking about 25, 30 years ago, EVOKE 15 years ago. So this is where I'm going now, but I'm taking the same structure. And one of the beauties of the structure is that the inner listening helps us all become better people and better in our business. The work with groups, we now have had, most of the people that have delivered Golden Civilization Conversations have been registered life planners. And they've done it for their clients. Not universally, sometimes they do it in associations and their book clubs with their families, that kind of thing. But because life planners understand EVOKE, how it works. So they've got an intuition of how to deliver this in a way that makes a community come together and become, what I'm stimulating in Hong Kong was participative democracy. I feel terrible for what's happening to them now, but it is, they got it immediately. And what I discovered is all over the world, people want democracy. We forget that sometimes. And we forget it here sometimes. And we lose track with what it is and what it means. So let me dive into 2 frames that I think you'll find really interesting from this book. The first frame is going to be something I call the Map of Mindfulness. And before I show it to you, we're going to show it to you, have you kind of try to memorize the design, come back. And then I'm going to show you one other frame, which is about these Golden Civilization Conversations and how they work. And they're just incredible, inspiring about civilization. But the frame with inner listening is this one. Those of you who are at my 2-day, now let's not share it yet, Laura. Let's keep the group for a moment. Those of you who are at my 2-day, I asked this question of you. You might not remember it, but I got everybody to raise their hand. And the question was, how many of you have had a moment of freedom in the past? You know, walking the beach, you know, making love, doing something wildly creative. All right, everybody raise their hand. How many people have had a moment of freedom in the past? We get everybody, to raise your hand, right? And then, but I actually told you a few minutes ago, I was going to ask you a trick question. That was the trick question. You all got it wrong. Nobody has ever had a moment of freedom in the past. We've only ever experienced freedom in the present moment. And this is helpful for all of you as life planners, because you want to deliver. I forget who was it that said it. Was Chris who was talking about, or Chip was talking about delivering people into moments of freedom. And that's really what we want to do. Those moments of freedom only happen in the present moment. The more you know about experiencing freedom in the present moment yourself, the better you're going to be at helping other people, however they frame it, because you'll know freedom in a way that's more wise. What mindfulness does is we approach the present moment again and again and again. It's incredibly humbling because it's impossible to do. Meditation, mindfulness, contemplative prayer, they're all very, very difficult to do because you can't just stay in that place. The present moment keeps throwing you back into civilization, back into your frames of self, back into time and space. But the attempt to do it does a couple of things. It builds enormous energy inside of you. It gives you the capacity, you're learning about all the ways that you're dysfunctional, all the ways that you lack empathy for yourself, the ways that you lack patience, the ways that you get anxious, the ways you get attached. So you're learning about yourself again and again and again and again and again. And it keeps throwing you back. So it keeps throwing you back into the world with little bits of more learning, more energy. And the other thing it delivers, because every time you go back to the present moment, you're stripping yourself of all your self stories, of your self-centeredness. The present moment's just the breath. There's no self there. There's just the present moment. So you're developing selflessness. And what that means is that you're developing all different kinds of virtue. Patience is probably the main one with the meditation practice, but kindness, generosity of spirit, empathy, all kinds of virtues. You can even have spiritual experiences come out of it. And Laura, let's go to the model now and just show them the map. So I created something going, our map of the universe is all wrong because it's not focused on the present moment. But look what happens when you focus it on the present moment. What you see is that you can actually see that that time and space all comes out of the present moment. Our self is part of the map of time and space. Civilization is part of that map. And by our attempt to really become really present, what happens is that we're awakening again and again, and we're abandoning our reactive modalities. And we're bringing the selflessness into the world. The way you do it with your clients and with your spouses is you listen better. You know, how many times do you want to interrupt your spouse and get to a point, your partner? You know, and what does that do? So much better to allow them to speak through what they need to say. And same thing with your clients. So you're developing this patience. You're developing all kinds of virtue. And occasionally you can have wonderful, peaceful experiences as well. So Laura, let's come back to the group. And I'm going to move toward another frame. Any questions about that frame? So you can read about it in my book. I have many different versions of this in the book. There are about 30 different maps that look at this. But my question was, how do we bring virtue into democracy? How do we bring it into markets? How do we bring it into advice and products, our world of financial products and financial advice? Any questions or comments? So I wanted to share it just to encourage you to continue to meditate. I know you did some daily in your practice with Louis. I do it a lot, and I've done it for 50 years, and I owe everything that I have been successful at, I think, to that practice. So just to encourage you. Yeah, Chris?
Did you ever meet Ram Dass out there in Hawaii?
No, I met him in Boston many years before.
Okay.
He went
to Hawaii.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
He volunteered to write a preface to my first book. That never came about, but we had a wonderful connection. Yeah, thank you. So any other questions or comments? Yeah, Dana?
A question. I am just starting to get more into the practice of meditation, and I was just wondering what you would explain to be a great starting point. Who are the leaders that you look for, and who was your mentor in the actual process of learning it?
I mostly went back and read ancient texts, so I'm not a good person to ask about mentors. I met Ram Dass. I've met most of the teachers that are out there, the lead teachers, and they're all wonderful people. I mostly studied text and then just practiced. I practiced several hours a day, really for 50 years. So I've practiced a lot, and that's where I got the most resource. And there are many, what is it, Headspace, there are wonderful apps that you can use now that are very helpful. I do recommend this book. I know it's, I don't get much from it. You can get it on Kindle for like $2, I think it is, $2 or $3. Oh, you got it already. Yeah. But the practice is the best, and communities are helpful. And I think the whole, I tend to like the people coming from the Buddhist frame, but there are lots of people, there are people in the Christian frame who do wonderful work with this. There's people in the Hindu community that do wonderful work with this. There are people that are completely secular that do wonderful work. So I would research, and you're likely to find good. There's thousands of scientific studies that have been revealed that are now, I share some of them in the Golden Civilization book. And I give, you can follow again through Laura, you might be able to find from Laura, I tend to give mindfulness Zoom meditations periodically, sometimes every week, but sometimes it's once every couple of months. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send a follow-up email with the answers to Dan's questions, as well as some resources for connecting with George around mindfulness.
Great. So let me share with you, let me move to the final frame. And this is the frame that, as I said, many RLPs have done. I've gone into RLP communities with their clients and led, as a client appreciation day, one of these Golden Civilization conversations, which are, as I say, really inspiring. And I've led them all over the world. I've led them in blue country and red country, as we've learned to think. I've led them in mixed countries. And I've never been stumped by the polarization. There's never been polarization that has arisen because of the way it's framed. And if you think the frame of life planning, EVOKE, is an inspiring frame. And that's what we do. We build an inspiring frame. And then we move toward action. And that action, it could be that the divide is between, government solutions and market-based solutions. Big deal. I mean, I'll support, if someone comes up with government solutions, I'll support it. If someone comes up with market-based solutions, I'm going to support it. The conversations are not hierarchical. So they're meant to really be participative democracy. So even where there might be differences, I want to support solutions, people who are willing to get out there and be engaged. That's what a great democracy is all about, is people who are engaged and engaged around an inspiring vision. And that inspiring vision tends to have the things we all love in it. It tends to have kindness. It's one of the first things that comes up. It tends to have generosity in it. It tends to have vitality in it. Lots of things. I'm going to show you the model because I'd love to hear your first thoughts coming out of it. And you do this, you can do it in 20 minutes, but it's a little brief. You can do it in 3 hours, and that really is an intense engagement with it. Probably the average time's an hour and a half, and it's wonderful. You can do it over a kitchen table. You can do it, I've done it in classrooms of 100 with lots of back and forth. So let's do a real quick one. Laura, can we do that? And I think we're not going to type it in. We just let's leave all three things up here. So these are the three kind of flip charts. There's a flip chart of vision, and we'll write in all the answers. There's a flip chart of obstacles, and you can see here we do divide it into inner and outer. And then there's a flip chart of actions. And the actions we divide into commitments, or actions that might be taken more all over the world, that might be taken globally, if you were the head of the UN, what you'd like them to do, or nationally, what you'd like, you know, our politicians to be doing, or locally, or in a group that you're engaged with. So all different kinds of actions. So and you can see, right, this is EVOKE. So Laura, let's come back to the group again and keep that frame in mind. 3 flip charts. The first one's just the golden civilization. We just fill it in. And then obstacles, fill that in. And then we move to action. So it starts with inspiration. It brings you down to the obstacles and then moves you to action. And the conversation, the reason the conversations are so inspiring at the end is we look for commitments. We ask, have people changed any ideas as a consequence of this conversation? And are they willing to make a commitment between now and our next conversation, say a month from now? Now, in terms of this for a resource, we've got lots of resources online. Laura will guide you to those. But one resource that we're doing that's really a lot of fun is I'm doing a version of a golden civilization for people who want to be teachers. And for some people who don't want to be teachers, but just want to learn how it's done. And you could be among that latter group. And I do it every 3 weeks. And you're welcome to come and join the group. The last group we had a couple dozen people, and they were from 4 continents and 6 different countries. So you can imagine the kind of the inspiration that's happening around these things. They're fun. And you feel like, wow, maybe we're not going to collapse as a species. Maybe the earth isn't going to collapse around us. You get, you know, and they're fun and engaged. So I'd love for you to come, but let's just try it for a moment here. We've got a few minutes left. So if you have the circle of golden civilization, what would you want in that circle? Just speak out your first thoughts. You got to get off mute. First thought could be a phrase, could be a sentence, could be just a word. What would you like in that golden civilization? What do you say? What's that?
Kindness.
Kindness, great. What else?
Empathy.
Empathy, beautiful. What else?
Health.
Health, absolutely. Yes, what else?
Equality.
Equality, beautiful. Thank you. What else?
Love.
Love, yeah, great. What else?
Inspiration.
Inspiration, beautiful. What else?
Moments of freedom.
Moments of beauty?
Of freedom.
Of freedom, beautiful.
And beauty.
And beauty. Let's put that in there too. Great. Thank you. Wonderful. What else?
Respect.
Respect, absolutely. And that's one of the huge ones. That comes up a lot. Very important and all over the world. What else?
Sense of belonging.
Sense of belonging, you bet. Yeah, what else?
Community.
Listening.
Community and listening. Excellent, great. What else?
Family.
Family, yeah, yeah. What else?
Joy.
Joy, yeah, great. Golden civilization, 1,000 years from now, it's finally arrived. What does it look like? What else is there?
Purpose.
Purpose, great. And someone else?
Torch.
Torch, yeah, great. Yeah, what else?
Adventure.
Adventure, you bet. Yeah, great. Anything else that's urgent, because we have such limited time?
Energy.
Energy, yeah, great, great, great. So let me frame this for you. What I realized was in life planning, would it work if you gave someone a life plan and you go, so, you know, let's go for this. And you don't put a time frame on it, and they're thinking, well, you know, in 30 years, I might get there. How good is your life plan going to be? How effective?
Not very.
Not very effective. So here's what I do in a golden civilization conversation. We've got the whole thing up there. It includes everywhere. It includes democracy and democratic freedoms. It includes an environment, a sustainable environment. So all the things that will make it all work, it's all up there. And so here's my frame. I go, so if as a consequence, right? You know the drill. If as a consequence of our work together and all these other groups, there are now several hundred groups that have popped up doing this, all these other groups, if as a consequence of our work and all these other groups gathering together, we were to deliver this circle, which I promise you is very similar to all these other circles, into the world within a single generation, how would that be? So let me ask you, how would it be?
Very exciting.
Yeah. Very exciting. Very exciting. And of course, terrifying, too, in ways that we all know life plans are. They're terrifying and thrilling. But what that does, the question, by putting a shorter time frame on it, it says, let's get busy. Let's make it happen. And just like with a life plan, life's too short. My frame really is that we've got elements of democracy all over the world. We've got media. Yeah, I mean, there's weakness in the media. There's weakness in democracy, but we've got it. We've got Zoom all over the world. Let's make it happen. Why hold ourselves back from making a great civilization happen? Let's make it happen. And with participative democracy, let's not just rely on our codependent relationship with politicians. Let's make it happen. Let's get out there and do it. So then the next question, of course, is, so what could possibly get in the way? And, you got everybody reading every newspaper or listening to every, news media in the world, getting terrified every night or whatever. And so we've got lots of ideas of what's going wrong. So people are right on top of that. But what's been really wonderful, folks, you love this. 2 of the first 5 things that come up, no matter what, are fear and greed. That's why we ended up really putting that strong inner obstacle there, fear and greed. That blew me away, that people all over the world know that there's some inner work that we need to do. That's one reason I pitched you with inner listening. Everybody in the world knows that. And something else that was really heartening to me? Everywhere in the world, and one of the places it happened most dramatically was in my backyard, basically, which is a kind of mixed neighborhood. And this was a group of seniors, all guys, over 70. You know what their number one obstacle they felt to a golden civilization was? And this was 9 months ago, before it all exploded. Racism. I couldn't believe it. I was so stunned. I never would have expected it from that community. That would be the number one obstacle. So the other obstacle that comes up in addition to fear and greed is prejudice of one sort or another. It doesn't have to be racial prejudice, but some belief systems that lock us into not allowing other people in some way. So those 3 things are always there. And then, of course, in the outer, you get the corruption, you get the typical stuff about corporations or about government, you get all the structural stuff that you expect in hierarchies of power. So it's all out there, all of it, right and left, right, left, and center. But most of all human, and where we join together. Very little of the polarized stuff is in that, are in either of these things. And then the final one is actions. So then we go to actions. So that actions get people really engaged and out there. So we ask them, first of all, you're head of the UN, or you're head of the Ford Foundation, or you're head of the you're head of America, or of a big corporation. What is it that needs to be done? Or you're head of your community, or what is it that needs to be done? What are the actions needs to be done? And you get the wonderful list. Everybody knows what needs to be done. This is not rocket science. Everybody knows what needs to be done. And it's beautiful because you realize that we're all alike on this. We're not polarized the way it looks from the media and from the political campaigns. We all know what needs to be done. And then you go to commitments. So you split that in half. Okay, so who's willing to make a commitment between now and 3 weeks from now, when we'll have our second meeting, as to what you will do? And we don't push the commitments, because my style in EVOKE, I've never been a hard sell, right? It's always kind of a soft sell at best. And so whoever wants to share them, and you pause a lot, you wait, because you want to get some. And if you've got a friend in the audience, you might have seeded one, I don't know, but you want to get, because it's good to get a few. But typically someone says, you know, I really want to, I mean, now they can't do as much, but I really want to find a way to work with the homeless, even though, you know, I'm still under lockdown and I'm scared of going out. I want to do something now. I want to figure it out. And you'll have homeless is a major one that comes up. Environment is a major thing that comes up. Obviously, as the political season heats up, you'll get more people wanting to register voters or to participate in one way or another in the political scene. The environment, did I mention that? The environment's a major thing that comes up. Meditation. Someone just says, you know, I'm gonna meditate a half hour a day. I've not been doing it. I'm gonna do it. We tend to start each meeting with a little bit of meditation. So, and if the most wonderful group that has done just about a dozen of these meetings now is focused on wisdom. They have people who have some experience in corporations and training in corporations. And they decided that what was lacking in all our hierarchies of power, there's no wisdom that automatically comes to the top. So their whole focus has been about how do we develop wisdom? And now they now have a school of wisdom that they've developed on how to bring it into institutional life everywhere, coming out of this work. So I would love for you to join with Laura and me on one of these calls, and love if you get intrigued with how to go forward, go to our website, look at the resources. These are inspiring conversations. I feel like I've retired into them, and I can't imagine something more kind of joyous to retire into when we can be very glum about the state of the world. And so it really gives me hope. And as I say, I've done it in red country and blue country. And both places I'm finding people getting inspired to do something and make a difference in their communities in wonderful ways. So any questions or comments on that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's actually, I have a comment. You know, sitting through Golden Civilization and XY Planning Live last year, it didn't make as much sense to me as it does now that I sat through EVOKE. And now I completely get it, and I completely get how it is life planning for civilization. And it makes much more sense to me, so thank you.
Yeah, wonderful, Alan. Yeah, it was. You know, it was a tough audience because I think a lot of the audience didn't know EVOKE, and it was harder. And there was some political polarization in the audience. I don't know if you realize that, but there was some in that group. But we're going to do it again, and we're going to do it online. We've got a beautiful way of doing it online in Zoom. That's really exciting because we use chat. And it's very powerful. Thank you, Alan, for your comment.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you for staying on longer. Apologies for running on, but I wanted to share with you where I am and ways to connect with me. I still do some life planning stuff. If we get back, we get out of lockdown, I'll be doing Hawaii again, I'm sure, and as my main contribution, and I'm sure I'll continue to do 2 days. And we'll do some advanced work that you'll have access to. Laura's cooking up some things that we'll be doing. Laura, anything you want to say in close?
Yeah, George is going to be a keynote at the XYPN-ish conference later this year. So if you do have other colleagues that are interested, if they haven't been through the 2-day, he's doing that with Louis. So there's lots of opportunities coming up to encourage your friends or to go through it again, because there's always a richness in repeating programs. So consider that.
Great, wonderful. What a great community. Thank you so much.
George,
yeah. Go ahead.
Are you partaking at all in the mentorship with the next class?
Unlikely. There'll be a crew of people, so you'll have a variety of people that you'll be engaging with. And Louis obviously will be a major figure in that, as he should be. I'm unlikely to do that, but as I say, Laura and I are always talking about more virtual programs that are ongoing, something we call Life Planning Mastery, which are ongoing programs.
Is that the next step after mentorship?
They're like CEUs. They're like, keeping up with your education. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, thank you.
You get to the next step after that and become kind of like Scott and I think her name's Christina, where they attend your sessions and help you educate. They support you and the team.
Well, Kate, thank you. And we'd love to know if you're eager or interested in that. And Dan brought that up, and I just didn't have time to dive into that earlier, which is training opportunities and all of that. We're always looking for, and we're looking for the next gen, frankly. We're of trainers, because, Louis, he's not nearly as old as I am, but he's getting on too. As is Dan. So let us know if you're interested in that. And Christina and Scott, we're really excited to have them participating in our programs as assistants, and maybe developing into trainers. But we start with just assisting, just experiencing. Yeah.
Count me in, please.
Alan, you're on. And
Bring
Chris
it.
too. All right, great. Yeah, fantastic, guys. Fantastic. Yeah. Wonderful getting to know you. I'm going to miss you already. I feel sad that I only had this little bit with you, and Louis and Dan had so much time with you, and that you've known each other, you've gotten together. Your group will stay together for a long time. That's what the mentorship helps to do, which is just wonderful, because you'll see the progress that goes on and on. Yeah. So thank you all. Come back again, participate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. See you soon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, George.
Yeah.
See you, everybody.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Laura.
Hey, just you.
Just